The sun was just beginning to rise over the dusty Marine Corps training range, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. The morning air buzzed with tension, boot soles crunching against gravel, metal clinking as rifles were checked and rechecked. A line of Marines stood ready, broad shoulders, square jaws, eyes full of pride and competition. And then, cutting through their sea of camouflage and combat green, walked a single figure whose presence made heads turn and smirks appear. She was small, quiet, and clearly not one of them, a civilian, by the look of it. Her blonde hair was tucked neatly beneath a cap, her stance modest, her demeanor unassuming. But it wasn't her that drew the laughter and muttered jokes. It was the rifle she carried, bright orange gleaming under the morning sun like a flame among shadows. Is she serious? One Marine whispered to another. Maybe she's here to teach us how to paint, came the chuckle in reply. They didn't hide their amusement. In a place where weapons were sacred extensions of pride and precision, her orange rifle looked like a toy. Some even assumed it was a modified civilian model, not a true firearm worthy of Marine hands. But she ignored the whispers. She simply walked to the end of the firing line, placed her small gear bag beside her, and began preparing as if the laughter around her didn't exist. Her name was Caitlin Rhodes, and though none of the Marines recognized her, her name had once meant something in a world far removed from this dusty range. 5 years ago, Caitlin had been a sniper. Not just any sniper, but one of the few women ever to serve in an elite reconnaissance unit overseas. She'd seen things no training ground could replicate, made shots no simulator could recreate. But those days were behind her now. A tragedy, one she never spoke of, had cut her career short, leaving her in silence and grief. The orange rifle was more than a weapon to her. It was a memory, a promise, and a scar. As she assembled it, her hands moved with the calm precision of muscle memory, each motion deliberate, each click echoing years of training. The range instructor, a tall, burly sergeant named Harris, gave her a skeptical look. "Ma'am," he said, trying to sound polite, "this course is for advanced shooters. You sure you're in the right place?" She simply nodded, eyes never leaving her rifle. The Marines chuckled again, but the sergeant shrugged and raised his hand to start the session. The first drill was standard, a 500-yard precision shot. The Marines lined up, fired in rhythm, their rifles cracking through the air. Dust clouds rose with each impact on the far targets. The instructor called out the scores. 85, 90, 93. Decent, respectable. Then came her turn. Caitlin adjusted her stance slowly, almost tenderly, as though each movement carried weight. She looked down the scope, and for a moment her breathing stopped. In her mind, she wasn't on a training range anymore. She was back in a distant desert, the wind whispering over dunes, the air heavy with danger and adrenaline. She could almost hear her spotter's voice, calm, steady, telling her, "Breathe. Just breathe." The orange rifle barked once. The echo rolled across the field like thunder. The target at 500 yards, a black circle no larger than a dinner plate, had a single hole clean through its center. The silence that followed was thick, electric. Every Marine turned to look. Even the instructor, who had seen his share of sharpshooters, lowered his binoculars in disbelief. "Perfect score," he muttered, almost to himself. Caitlin didn't react. She simply chambered another round. The next distance was 800 yards. Then 1,000. Then 1,200. Shots that demanded not just skill, but an understanding of wind, air pressure, and heart rate. One by one, she hit them all, each shot more impossible than the last. The laughter had stopped. The only sound now was the rhythmic crack of her rifle and the distant metallic ping of rounds striking steel. But what no one there knew, what they couldn't have known, was that each shot came from a place far deeper than pride or competition. Caitlin wasn't there to prove herself. She was there to reclaim something she had lost. 5 years earlier, on her final mission overseas, her team had been pinned down by enemy fire. She had taken position on a ridge, her then black rifle resting on a rock, her heartbeat steady. But when her spotter, the man who had trained beside her, laughed beside her, trusted her, moved to draw fire away from the others, Caitlin made a split-second decision to take a shot she wasn't ready for. The bullet missed by inches. The enemies did not. She never forgave herself. After the mission, she resigned quietly. She had her rifle painted orange, her spotter's favorite color, the same one he'd worn on a small patch beneath his vest. Every time she looked at it, she was reminded of both the promise she'd made to be the best and the reason she never wanted to touch a rifle again. But time has a strange way of healing, and when she was invited to this Marine event as a guest marksman, something in her stirred. She hadn't picked up a weapon in years, but she knew this was her moment to make peace with her past. By the time the sun stood high, Caitlin had shattered every record the range had ever seen. Marines who had mocked her now stood behind her whispering in awe. The instructor walked up slow and respectful, the weight of what he'd witnessed clear in his eyes. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "if you don't mind me asking, where'd you learn to shoot like that?" She looked up at him for the first time that day, her expression calm but distant. "From someone who never missed," she said softly. That was all she said. She packed her rifle, slung the orange barrel over her shoulder, and started to walk away. But as she reached the edge of the range, she turned back, just once, and raised her hand in a silent salute to the line of Marines still standing frozen where they were. None of them laughed now. None of them spoke, because they knew deep down that they had just witnessed something far greater than skill. They had seen pain transformed into purpose. That night, the story of the woman with the orange rifle spread quietly through the base. Some called her a legend, others a ghost from an old war. But those who saw her shoot that day would never forget the sound of that first shot, the one that silenced every voice, every doubt, every shadow of mockery. And somewhere, as the stars stretched across the desert sky, Caitlin sat alone beside her rifle, her fingers tracing the orange metal. For the first time in years, her hands didn't tremble. The ghosts were finally quiet. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the unseen battles people fight behind calm eyes and steady hands, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps us share more stories of courage, loss, and redemption like Caitlin's. Special request. Tell us in the comments. What does strength mean to you after hearing her story?